WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Theme song by Stanley Spencer, taking a classic, I guess that's considered heavy metal song, and then making it into Carol Ann's own theme songs. I love that thing.
Yeah, I do too.
How you doing, Carol Ann?
Good, Larry. How are you?
Time to talk about our gardens and our lawns and watermelons.
And watermelons and anything else, bugs and fertilizers, rain, everything you got.
So if you want to call in, the number is 622-9622. Simple as that.
Area code's 352.
So you know what I did the other day with Robin? We went riding bicycles on the University of Florida campus.
Okay.
And we rode past the
IFAS.
Yeah. What does it stand for again?
Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences.
And I said, hey, there's the actual place. Because in Ocala we have the extension
of IFAS,
that, right?
The extension of the University of Florida IFAS program, right?
So that was kind of cool because there's a lot of stuff growing there.
Oh yeah, they've got all kinds of different things that and I mean they have University of Florida. I mean we have a great resource. It's 40 miles up the road.
Mm-hmm.
And that, but yet still even nearer to us, there's all kinds of areas where they. Do I hate to say experimentation, but it's where grow plots and research. That's the word I want. Research plots and things like that are up in Citra and things. Looking at grass and turf types for Central Florida, vegetable crops, produce, fruit crops and things like that. They're researching throughout the state of Florida on citrus greening. It all has to do with Florida, and we're a huge agriculture state. People don't really. We're not just Mickey.
We're not just Mickey.
We're not just Mickey.
It's a great shirt. That'd be a great slogan.
We're not just Mickey. And I mean, even Disney and Universal and those places, the agriculture that goes on through those parts behind the scenes, just so that when we, the visitor, come in and we say, wow.
Beautiful.
We don't even know.
We don't
even know we're paying attention to that awe of the plants. But it's there. The beauty of it is there for part of that experience. Oh, the topiaries and things that are carved out of shrubbery and that. But that behind the scenes, that underground that happens at Epcot, at Disney, at all those places, to where if there's 4 hanging baskets around this lamppost, one of those plants goes bad. It's not bad for long.
Okay,
that thing comes down and is swapped out.
I didn't know.
Rather promptly.
I guess that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, that's, most of their gardening crews and things like that work at night.
Yeah.
After hours. That's, when you can come through and clip and prune and pull and replace and the seasonal changes for holiday plants and things like that are just...
I happen to have been privy. Robin and I were there one time. Just before, like maybe an hour or 2 hours, maybe before they opened.
Okay, so because you were doing one of the broadcasts, and live remote
with
thing.
Joe, yes, and we saw the tail end of that thing you're talking about, and we saw like golf carts with whole trees,
and just
being taken away because that was no good. I said, wow, they take out a whole tree, and put one in its place while we're sleeping.
Right.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
And if it doesn't, and they grow all this stuff, and I believe a lot of I'm not sure about Disney so much as I know Legoland does a lot of that they for their restaurants for the places like that it's Florida selected produce and or meat products
Really?
and things like that, dairy products. I know Lego is a big one on it, that they locally source. I want to say like 95%.
Does it make
of
it
their
easier?
things.
Like when you say we're just going to use local, does that make it easier for the agricultural people with those responsibilities?
Oh, well, sometimes, yeah. I mean, you can have a small farm that's
Thank you, Robin. Thank you.
growing herbs. And they supply herbs to several different restaurants, whether or not it's the Legoland Resort, one of the other resorts, where hey, we're growing for them. So they know they just have to continue their crop and make a high quality product.
Wait, I have a question for you. Do you know anything about, is it ferns? Like between here and Daytona, there's this
The
big,
fern farms.
That's been
over
there for as long as I've been here.
Oh yeah,
What
we're one of the biggest fern for the.
What are they grown for? What do we use ferns for?
For the florist industry.
Oh.
Predominantly for the florist industry is what that's what.
And they all come from right over.
They all within DeLand.
You never hear about it,
Volusia. Actually, a few years back we did because we had bad freezes one year and we had wildfires.
And it hurt the ferns?
Well, some of the bad freezes, because I mean they're, those are those areas. If you've ever driven out 40, and there's not near as many as there used to be, out 40 getting over there, Volusia County, Eastern, I think it's part of Eastern Lake County. They're the things that are covered in shade cloth.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a fern farm.
How big is that? Do you know? It's got gigantic,
acres,
right?
acres. Yeah. Sure.
All right, you do have a phone call, and just for everybody else, if you want to call in, you are absolutely invited to do that, whether it's a question or you just want to add to the conversation. The number is 352-622-9622. Good morning. Thank you for calling. You're on the air with Carol Ann.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Carol Ann.
Yeah, hey, you.
Jay, the big subject this week is space and the moon and all that
Sure.
stuff. Do you recollect any experiments like on a space station that do with plant life?
They do quite a bit on that, or they have over the years. I mean, even on what was it, Skylab, and that they've done, a lot of experimentation to see the effects of radiation on seed and or on the plant tissue itself, to see whether or not it would be possible to habitate, is that the right word? The moon kind of thing,
Yeah.
whether or not we can grow our own produce and things, because you can only pack so much. And that kind of thing, of whether or not you could have something that could contain or sustain a group of people for an extended period of time without it all being dehydrated food.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you know if they were surprised by any of the experiments, the way they turned out?
I don't believe there have been any real surprises. I don't think it's actually affected anything, negatively or positive. Yeah, I don't believe there were. I mean, I don't recall hearing any, that were just so amazing or anything. And I mean, we have parks and things around where the seeds for certain trees were carried into space and then brought back and dispersed throughout the country, I believe, in climates where those trees would thrive, and the trees are growing now. So I don't think, I don't know if there's been any huge errors or mistakes, or that their findings were totally disproved or anything like that. I think it's all been fairly smooth on that side.
Yeah. I suppose, way down the line, you probably were thinking about eventually, like on the moon or maybe Mars, having like greenhouses, I suppose, because you got to have food stores. So I suppose they were kind of thinking in that kind of terms.
Sure. Oh, yeah, most definitely. That's where some of these crops, and you figure, again, here we go back to that recycled water issue, that if you can get things, and I don't know if they've, tried anything. I'm sure they haven't tried anything yet, because just how would you transport it on things like, say, tilapia, where your fish would be feeding actually the plant material, that water's being recycled into the fertilization and the watering of those plants, and that. But how expensive in order to get water that far. or a quantity of water, but it would be, kind of thing that possibly, but without gravity, you'd be having to create your own, your fish would be floating out of water.
Yeah. That's right.
It'd be, but there's different things,
Yeah, whether or not we're going to be here, it's in the future of mankind, and it's an interesting subject. And it's just going to be. I just wish I could live 100 more years, to
just
see what
to
else
see.
is going to happen. 'Cause it's such an interesting thing,
Certainly, yeah. That it's been 50 years. What's going to happen now? Because it seems like we've gotten this in the last couple of years. This huge new interest again to go back up into space, and I think it's fantastic. There's so much that can be learned up there. I don't know whether you think about it. We got Velcro. We got what was it? Velcro microwave ovens and super glue or something like that from the space program. There's different things that had to be invented because it was the invention is what is it? Necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yeah.
So, when you're in limited space and limited atmospheric kind of thing, but you figure, plants clean air. That if you've got something that's able to produce, and they recycle air, they transpire moisture, they absorb moisture. So, if you're planting things into this, like I say, a biosphere climate where if they make an artificial gravity, where you can be in there, maybe they can put a couple of chickens in there that would provide, to see whether or not they can do a small scale. I'm sure that's something that's on somebody's drawing board somewhere.
Yeah. I enjoy this subject and watching a lot of science TV on this subject, and they all say, the scientists all agree that sooner or later our sun's going to burn out, and if mankind's going to continue to exist, we're going to have to move on somewhere. I don't know if it's to Mars or where else, but our future is not here.
Well, it's one of those kind of things. I think if our sun burns out, we're all in trouble because how would you move the population of the Earth? Honestly, it could not happen. And I don't think it's in anybody that we can ever imagine's lifetime that would ever, how far down the line. And by that point, have we destroyed it?
Yeah, it's a mind-boggling thing to think about, but. We're not going to be here, so I don't think we should worry about it. But it would be kind of neat if we could be.
Right. Be one that that just to think forward on that. And actually, I think our forward thinking doesn't necessarily mean that our sun is going to burn out. I think our biggest concern now is how do we better, be better stewards of what we have here. Throughout the world. We try here, and I know there's other countries that are the size of many of our states or smaller that have fantastic recycling plants and this and that. But when you look at those countries, they're so small. You can have cities that have this same kind of thing.
Israel is a good example.
Yeah, Israel's a fantastic example, and so are some of the other Scandinavian countries where, they have zero garbage going out. Well, that's because their population is that of one of our cities. Or maybe one state, their size. And so you can control that when you can control what is imported into your country, when you can control what is allowed to be consumed. And that only happens when it's almost a monoculture in some of those countries as well. So you don't have that variation, and it's much easier when you have somewhat, it might be socialist countries, benign dictatorships, where we have freedom of choice. In other parts of the world, we just don't have it.
Yeah. Well, on the subject of population and human waste, the baseline landfill everybody knows about is the highest point in Marion County, probably in Florida, I don't know. But I was out there a week ago talking to a worker, and they're just about, they've got a few more months left, and that's going to be the end of that, and they're going to build another mountain, I think, down in Lake County. So it's a problem of humanity, so we'll see what happens. It's a shame they just can't get rid of that garbage somehow other than making a mountain out of it,
Than to bury it in the ground. I know. Why can we not be using, some of that waste, recycling what we can and reusing that waste to create energy. Except too many people say not in my backyard on something like that, an incinerator plant that would take care of some of that. They don't want it in their backyard. But you know what? I was down for my vacation. I was down in the Boca Raton area visiting family, and my sister and two great nieces and we went to a park, I think it's Okeechobee Park. It is built on top of what was a landfill. It's a gorgeous park. Wonderful park. Yeah. They have, man-made lakes on here for water skiing and other, activities. There's walking trails. There's bicycle. It's a gorgeous park. And unfortunately, probably Mount Marion will sit there as a mountaintop for many years before they decide what they could actually do with it.
Yeah, well, maybe with climate change going the other way, maybe we'll get snow in Florida and we can ski on that thing.
There you go.
Okay, well, nice talking to you, and have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Thanks for calling you. Yeah, that's always it's always one of those different kinds of things. So what can you do? I mean, if we all have everybody does. If everybody does a little bit, it all ends up making a difference.
And to their credit, I mean, it doesn't smell when you drive past it, and it doesn't look bad.
I don't think I've really seen too much issues. I mean, it does have methane. If you drive by and you look, you see it burning
that flame,
off.
Yeah,
you see that flame.
But
that's the methane gas.
There's a similar place in Staten Island. You're probably familiar with it. And when you drive past that place, it stinks bad.
And I think it's possible, that just our methods of burying, layering, however they've done. Yeah, that it's.
I don't know what they do differently, or if it's the wind or the landscape or whatever.
Or whatever it is, But it is tough that we will be exporting our solid waste, out of the county here pretty soon.
Yeah, remember that story we had a few years ago of all the garbage on the barge and nobody wanted it? The barge
just kept floating around. Crazy.
How'd that happen?
And that's the thing too. Is I guess I don't know if anybody still does is dumping garbage in the oceans. Come on, we can't do that. It should not be done.
I bet it's still done in some countries.
I'm sure it is, and that's
well, look at the rivers. I mean, we had the rivers used to be fair game for throwing stuff into the rivers.
Right,
the Hudson River, the Bronx River, all those rivers were horrible. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying you would drink the water now, but at least you can go canoeing.
And your canoe's not going to rot out from underneath you while you go down the river.
You never saw canoes in the Bronx River when I was a kid. Yeah. And you never saw, I don't remember any personal watercraft in the Hudson either back in those days. But then again,
they may not have really been.
Yeah, I can't remember when they came out, those things, but... All right, sorry, that's the phone. Good morning. You're on the air with Carol Ann.
Good morning, Carol Ann. It's Sonny calling.
Good morning, Sonny.
I can remember many years ago, I was a little kid. I wound up on a tugboat, and it was amazing what we saw going past us as we were going up the East River. Mm-hmm. And everything from dead horses to all kinds of animals, whatever kind of garbage you can think of.
Wow.
And today there's a place off, I think it's off New Jersey. It's called the Cholera Banks. And that was where they were dumping the bodies of people who were dying either from cholera or whatever disease that we couldn't cure in the city in the early days, early 1900s.
Wow.
Another thing is they still have they call them barges, but they're actual ships. They take the sewage out from the sewage treatment plants. And one of them plants that I know of personally is Whitestone Sewage Treatment Plant. They got a fancy name for it.
Right.
They made a park around it. It looks beautiful.
Right.
It doesn't smell, but those ships leave on an average of about once or twice a week.
Right.
And they go down now to the ocean, and they dump the sludge that they can't do anything with, or anything more with, I should say. And they steam on back. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that's
what can I tell you?
Yeah, that is.
Milwaukee, at least they convert theirs into a fertilizer.
Well, and we have that in here in Florida as well. There's a plant in Fort Myers, I think it is now, that does a Florida version, and it's a couple bucks cheaper. So
Well, anyway, they feel where they dump it that it's we're far enough out to sea that it doesn't wash back
doesn't
in,
disrupt
and
anything.
the
But you
prevailing
figure, but you
current
figure though,
keep
even
it in the ocean
Yeah,
rather
but-
than
yeah, but
pushing it towards the land.
But the whole thing
land
is,
anywhere.
yeah. But the whole thing
But-
is that, Sonny, is that even if you read the bag of the one from Milwaukee kind of thing, they contain heavy metals. We really don't need that in the oceans either, because
Yeah.
eventually it does build up.
But anyway, it's I don't know where else it's done, but I can't imagine New York is the only city that does that.
No, I'm sure they're not.
So-
I'm sure they're not.
Anyway, my Jacob's coat popped back.
Oh, good,
Looks,
good.
They looks really beautiful now.
Oh, good. Glad to hear.
That was pretty fast when you consider everything.
Oh, sure. Well, this is that time of year. I mean, it's as my mother-in-law used to call the July and August type thing was jungle season. Everything grew so fast
Right.
you couldn't keep up with it. So if you happen to accidentally cut the wrong branch off of a shrub, it was back within a short period of time, or you had new growth.
Yeah. But anyway, I appreciate your coming on the air every week and keeping us informed, and appreciate some of the callers coming in and telling us what's going on here.
Sure.
I mean, it's pretty weird. I think, personally, I don't see how we're going to survive anything like the sun imploding or something.
No, I don't think
No, I
we
don't
would
think so.
either. I don't think we would either. We're on the same page.
Yeah,
on
well,
that.
you never know.
That's
From what
true.
I understand, if a sun implodes, it turns into a black hole.
Don't know.
But anyway, have a great day.
All righty,
And
you
thanks
too.
again, Larry, for
Thank you,
everything
Sonny.
you're doing
You're
for our
welcome.
community. And thank you again, Carol Ann. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye now.
You too.
And you have
Thanks for calling.
another call coming in. Good morning. You're on there with Carol Ann.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, it's not likely you would drink Hudson River water in the New York City area anyway because it's quite salty. It is brackish clear up to West Point before it starts to get sweet.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So it's almost a tidal.
It's a tidal river.
Tidal river,
so
yeah.
you know,
The Hudson is, or the East River, as you mean?
the salt goes quite a ways north, according to the flow of the tide.
You mean the East River? The East River is the one that's salting.
Well, the East River also. The East River meets the Hudson River going around the bend there, and they come together under Spite and Dibble.
Wow. Yeah, on the south end here. Yeah, I think all the fresh water in New York City comes from the Catskills. Actually, I think they pipe it down.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The water for New York City is piped down from the Catskills. New York City bought the side of a mountain and made a reservoir up
so
there.
they could get
Yeah.
the water. Well, hey, you got to get your water somewhere.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
All right. Have a good morning.
Appreciate
Have a good morning.
Yeah, you too.
So, with the storms, like we
Yeah.
just had Hurricane, what was it, Barry?
Barry, yeah.
And all the salt water that pushes in
Inland onto.
in that whole area of the Gulf.
Right.
Does that affect their farmland? I mean, all that
Oh, it
salt that
can.
gets pushed up here?
Yeah, it can. Very big to the landscape, to farming lands, things like that. Sure, anytime you get an influx of a high salt content, it's going to do some damage. It's going to burn some plants. Some of them will burn just temporarily, and then they'll come back on their own if they were hardy enough or tolerant enough of that, because it also brought a lot of rain. And of course, rain is going to
you go.
flush some
Might-
of that out as
yeah.
well.
Counter
It's
it,
the
yeah.
the longer it sits underwater, that's actually your biggest problem. Is that when it's underwater, it's that soil is so saturated that it cuts off airflow to the root system of the plants, and that's what causes your biggest damage. Is that kind of thing. So it's not necessarily the salt water, though. That's a big issue. It's the water volume itself. Like, that's how we drowned our plants, when we overwater our
And
plants.
I'm the guilty party with that one.
And when we've had tropical storms and hurricanes that have come through this area and certain localized flooding, and the next thing you know is, and you might not see it right away, it might be a couple months down the line, is that anything that was below that water line is dying back or struggling to survive kind of thing.
All right, we've got 10 seconds. Got some prizes.
We got some prize packages again. We got $20 gift certificates with from Time Out Billiards.
All right, we'll be right back.
Yep.
Call up if you want them.
Fox News, I'm Lillian Wu. The president's feud with 4 freshman congresswomen continuing on Twitter this morning.
He said the Democratic congresswomen have been, quote, spewing some of the most vile, hateful, and disgusting things ever said by a politician in the House or the Senate, and yet they get a free pass and a big embrace from the Democratic Party.
Fox's Kevin Corke. House Democrats planning to vote on a measure that strongly condemns what they're calling the president's racist remarks aimed at the 4 women of color, 3 American-born, who he told to go back to their countries. Hearings on Capitol Hill today for top tech companies, including Facebook, Google, and Amazon.
An antitrust panel of the House Judiciary Committee is looking to find out whether the companies have become so big that they need to be broken up. The hearing coming as regulators around the world are voicing concerns about the tech giants' market power and their data collection policy.
Fox's Cheryl Casoni. This is Fox News.
Today we decided to walk to school. The light counted. 15, 14, 41, 31, 13. We took a left on Carroll Street. Danny's smart, but he gets distracted. I realized he forgot his homework. I hope he doesn't have another bad day at school.
When you can see learning and attention issues from their side, you can be on their side. That's why there's Understood.org, a free resource for the parents of the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues. Go from misunderstanding to Understood.org. Brought to you by Understood and the Ad Council.
At Indeed, we believe a resume is a great way to see an overview of a candidate. But you're not hiring a resume, you're hiring a person. That's why Indeed offers tools that help bridge the gap between a candidate and the resume. Like skill tests, which let you actually see a candidate's abilities in action to make sure they're a good fit for the job. See beyond the resume with Indeed. Experience Indeed for yourself today and get a free sponsored job upgrade on your first posting at Indeed.com/promo. Terms and conditions apply.
Here is your 1-minute news brief. Apollo 11 astronauts Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins are at the Kennedy Space Center today, marking the 50th anniversary of the historic liftoff that brought the first humans to the moon. The third member of that mission on July 16, 1969 was Neil Armstrong. Armstrong died in 2012. Marion County Sheriff's deputies arrested 5 people involved in a cockfighting operation. A 31-year-old Florida man has been sentenced to 70 years in federal prison for recording himself having sex with a 1-year-old child and distributing videos on the internet. The University of Florida says Florida farmers sold 800 million pounds of watermelon last year, making Florida the largest watermelon producing state. Walt Disney World announced yesterday that the Disney Skyliner will begin operating their gondolas on September 29th, and Disney World guests will be able to walk from Disney's Grand Floridian Resort to the Magic Kingdom on a new walking path connecting the resort to the theme park. And that is your news brief from The Source.
Partly sunny on this Tuesday. Watch out for a morning thunderstorm along the coast and an afternoon thunderstorm inland. High 91 at the coast, 95 inland. Fair skies Tuesday night, low 74 to 78. Wednesday, partly sunny. A morning thunderstorm at the coast, an afternoon thunderstorm over the interior. High 91 at the coast, 95 inland. Thursday, times of sun and clouds. Watch out for an afternoon thunderstorm. High 91 at the coast, 95 inland. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Summertime. It takes you back, doesn't it? Makes you think and remember. What did you do in the summertime when you were a kid? At Palm Garden of Ocala, we see folks who are young at heart, but their bodies are giving them a tough time. Our goal for every guest we serve is to bring them to their highest level of independence. Come visit us soon. We're located on the corner of Southwest 27th Avenue and 34th Street. And when you're in the hospital, ask for Palm Garden by name.
Hi, this is JP from Penn Flooring here in Ocala. I would like to invite you to come in and visit our spacious showroom where we have solutions for every style and budget. From wall-to-wall carpet to hardwood floors and tiles, we have an unsurpassed selection of flooring. At Penn Flooring, we've provided quality customer service with a family touch for over 25 years. Visit our website at pennflooring.com or come by our showroom, 1201 Southwest 17th Street, just over the bridge. Penn Flooring, quality customer service with a family touch.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Carol Ann Baldwin is here. The show is called In the Garden with Carol Ann. So if you'd like to be on the program with Carol Ann, you need to call 352-622-9622. And I got a whole half hour here, and we want to thank Carol Ann once again for doing this. She volunteers her time. Do you have to work today?
Yeah, I do.
So you volunteer this, and then you have to go to work.
And I got to, boogie out of here and get to work by 11.
Oh, my gosh.
It's a lot of fun. Earlier, you had that article on watermelon. And this
yes.
Watermelon and summertime are hand in hand throughout the country.
I love watermelon.
Oh, I do too. You get a good watermelon. And Florida watermelon, I don't know, it's just even, I think it's a little better. But we, like I said, in the little news thing, we're the top producer of watermelon in the United States, which is true. Florida farmers sold over 800 million pounds of watermelon last year. South Florida seems to be our biggest watermelon producing area, though it is grown up here. I mean, you see, up in this area, Orlando and north and things, a lot of times those are probably maybe kept a little more locally. I'm not sure if any of those are contracted out onto, the supermarket chains or anything like that, or if that's what we more find in our local farmer market and flea market kind of thing. I'm not real sure on that. They said, and then I went and looked it up, and it's like Florida is the only state in the country that produces watermelon from December through April. So we actually produce watermelon throughout the winter months.
Even
so when
in the
you
winter.
find when you're finding watermelons in the winter months, you might be finding Florida watermelon. I'm not sure if we find them this far north, but again, South Florida, some of that might be produced down
When you
there.
see the cube-shaped watermelon, is that a trick, or is that a...
they put them in a box.
That's all they do?
They put them in a box.
After they grow or while they're growing?
As they're growing. Yeah, as they're growing, so that it hits the sides and they go square. They're icebox ones. I think that came out of Japan some years back. I've seen that. And then these little teeny ones. It's like these little tiny cannonball ones, and I'll keep going. I've not bought one because it's so little. I'm thinking there can't be much in there when you think of the thickness of the rind. Just like cutting a pomelo open.
A pomelo?
Pomelo is a citrus fruit that's massive,
size of
a football, but the rind is so much of it. It's very grapefruit-like.
Really?
Cool-looking fruit. Some people grow them just because it's giant, and can be used similar to a grapefruit. But yeah, actually on a video I was watching on Facebook the other day, here's this guy cutting this fruit, and I didn't have the sound on, and I'm going, boy, that is one of either, because it looked like it was like a Bahama red grapefruit, but the rind was so thick on it. I'm going, wow, that just looks like a huge red pomelo. Where you get, here's this great big fruit, and you get this little tiny piece in the middle of it. And
we had a segment we did not so long ago about weird sports, and one of them, someplace in this country, they have the gourd regatta, where people take these big, gigantic pumpkin-like things, carve them out, and literally use them as boats.
Okay.
And they sit inside of a hollowed-out whatever,
pumpkin,
and paddle their way across a body of water. And isn't that funny?
It is. I mean, we'll make a sport out of anything, or a festival for it. So.
By the way, I looked to see. It says China grew a cotton sprout on the moon as part of an experiment.
Okay.
But it was technically not on the surface of the moon. It was
It was in the moon
in a container.
Right.
In the
atmosphere.
I think it had air in it too.
But they just took it up. Right. They just took it up. Right. It's just experimentation to see whether or not radiation has any effect.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah.
On that kind of stuff. And I believe this might even be, the space program, I'm not sure, I'd have to look it up, whether or not some years back it was on the news. I'm not sure if the practice still goes on, where they were irradiating herbs and like berries because there's such short shelf life on fresh that if they ran it through and irradiated them, that was killing the bacteriums on the surface without soaking it, which really wetting things like that really just shortens their life even more. I know there was a lot of concern whether or not that was actually going to affect the nutritional value of it. I don't think a whole lot of people, when they buy fresh herbs, are buying it for the nutritional versus the culinary flavoring portion. Because when you figure 1 tablespoon in that whole thing that's going to feed the family of 6, you're not getting a whole lot of nutrition. Right. But your berries and things like that, I know there was a concern on that. I'm not sure what I haven't heard about it in years, so I'm not sure what's happening with that. But I have a feeling that may have come from our space program. Just that whole thing of having the radiation.
Could be, yeah.
And, it's not anything that was going to cook them. It was just in order to kill the bacteriums on the surface, and so I guess so far within the cells of the fruit and the berry and things. Because a lot of people are concerned on having residual pesticides or contaminants on fruits and vegetables, and your hard-skinned ones, your apples, your cucumbers and things like that, you could take and soak. And a lot of people use like vinegar and soak it in vinegar, and that breaks down anything that's on them. But you can't do that with berries. Berries are going to absorb all of that, and you're going to have mush. Or you're going to have something that's going to taste really gross. So it's, berries and things like that, we really do just rinse, and just, use with caution.
When's the last time, this is kind of a curveball question, but when's the last time you grew something that you'd never grown before, that you've always wanted to grow, or has that happened?
I actually have. I mean, right now you could say I'm truly trying to grow my pineapple. Before I would just, throw it out in the backyard and go grow, if you will. And they usually thrive for a while and then they froze, or something like that.
Okay.
This time I actually have it in a pot.
Oh, really?
Trying to do it. And my apple tree. Yeah. So
my apple tree's doing really good.
Yeah, my apple tree is too.
Yeah. In fact, it's outdoors and it's just loving it out there.
Oh, yeah.
But my peace lily, this is how I think of you every single morning, because I go get a drink of water and then I give the plant some water, and I have more water during the course of the day, but that's all he gets. That I pour a little bit in there and he's fine. He's doing good.
Happy so long as he's been happy.
Plus, it's got a hole in the bottom of it, so if I did give too much, it'll go out.
It's going to come out of the bottom. That's right. That's why we.
How big do they get, by the way?
Peace lilies, they can get quite large. Actually.
Really?
Yeah.
But if it's in a pot, it'll stay.
It'll grow to the size of that pot. It'll try to grow larger, but then that's when we sort of go. I'm going to take a section of this and repot it and get rid of the rest. I've had a lot of people come in because, like you got yours, it was for a funeral. It's like a memorial plant. It's like, every time I see them, you think,
that's my brother's plant.
Yeah, and that they don't want to get rid of that plant, but it's huge. They can't put it in a bigger pot. Their home will not take it. It's already in a gigantic pot. And I this is one way to do it. You can either divide it and share it among family members. That would take if they wanted it, or just take you one piece back and get rid of the rest. You still have part of that plant.
You just reminded me of
something. That
remembrance.
And so, redo and start over again on that.
So I'm going to share this with you and the listeners, obviously. Yeah. So yesterday was my son's birthday, and my brother died 2 months ago.
Right.
And my brother lived in the West, in Southwest, in Arizona and California. So we went out there when Alex was little. We went to the Grand Canyon with him. So we have this really fond memory of visiting his place in the desert and seeing, for the first time in my life or his life, the saguaro cactus, the big kind.
The great big,
So the other day, I'm looking for a birthday card for my son in Walgreens.
Okay.
And in Walgreens, they got these little pots.
Oh, yeah.
With these little
tiny,
I know they're not saguaro.
Right, but they're still
but they
little
sort
cactus,
of look like it.
The little moundy
They
ones.
sort of look like it,
and they could be baby ones.
I don't know what they are, but I bought one.
Yeah.
And I gave it to Alex. I said, "This is really more of a gift for Uncle Bob, or from Uncle Bob."
But it made I saw it. It made me think of my brother and you at the same time.
Is that right?
And that would be.
Tell me your brother's story.
No. I'm saying that's what you're thinking. Your brain saw that and thought of your brother. But also thought of your son as you were buying him a birthday card and remembering fondly the trip.
Sure.
So it did. No, it was a combination.
And it was real, and it was alive, and it had a red flower on the top of it.
That flower's fake.
That flower is fake?
Yes, it's glued on. It's glued on.
For real?
Yeah, for real. Look close. I asked him to look close and see the glue.
But it looks just like
hot glue.
It doesn't look quite like a. But anyway, my son said, "Is this real?" And I said, "Yeah."
Yeah, the plant's real. The flower's not.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm disappointed now.
All the time. Yeah, they call them straw flower. It's the flowers.
Straw flower. But it'll live, right?
Oh yeah.
But you don't got to water that a whole lot.
No, not too much. Yeah, not too much.
I'm gonna go get another one.
Yeah.
It was this Walgreens right here next to the mall.
Yeah,
so.
they're cute little cute little pots. Sometimes.
Because I went to another one, and the lady said, "We don't sell cactus." I said, "Yes, you do. I saw one in here the other day."
Yeah, they sell some plants, not a lot, but like you say, they're usually right there somewhere near the front of the store.
But where you work at Lowe's, they have cactus, right?
Yeah.
But
usually
not the
little
saguaro.
No.
Saguaro. How do you say that word?
Saguaro, I think it
With
is.
a G, saguaro.
I think the G it might be silent, like lasagna.
Like lasagna. It's nothing at all like lasagna.
But the G is silent.
Can you make anything to eat out of a cactus?
Yes.
What do you make?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. You ever heard of dragon fruit?
No.
They make the dragon fruit juice into a lot of the juices. That is the fruiting body of the dragon fruit cactus. And the big prickly pear, the ones that you...
That one I've heard of. That's around here, right?
The fruit you can eat as well as that large pad. I've never had the pad, but I have had the fruit.
Comes complete with a toothpick.
That's it. If you don't get them all up, but usually they skin those off and fry them.
They fry the
No, not the spines.
Oh, okay.
They peel them and fry those fleshy, squishy.
Really?
Yeah.
So what is it, like eggplant?
I've not had that. I have had the fruit though.
Cactus parmesan?
Yeah, cactus parmesan.
Oh, that does sound good.
Something different. a little guac sauce or something on there. Yeah. But yeah, there's almost, I can't say something you can eat out of everything, but pine trees, you get pine nuts, which are just the seeds.
I am not a big fan of pine nuts. Because they taste like pine trees.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's
Dr. Lang used to
right up there with gin.
Dr. Lang used to talk about how healthy they were. So I said, let me try them. And I ate them. I felt like I was eating wood.
Yeah. If you feel like it, why don't I just grab a pine cone and gnaw on a pine cone? A little stickier, but
that's where it comes from, right?
Yeah.
The pine cone? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the seed from it. But all kinds of your different nuts and some of those things. I guess watermelon seeds we don't eat. Those are one.
No?
We eat pumpkin seeds. We eat sunflower seeds.
Pumpkin seeds are supposed to be good for
pumpkin seeds
men.
are supposed to be very good for you. I like pumpkin seeds.
For the man
They're
thing.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be good.
Yeah, but I think it's good for everybody. I think they got good stuff in it.
We had that at Halloween, actually.
Pumpkin.
The benefits of pumpkin seeds for the man.
The man.
Yeah. The man thing.
The man thing. But no, they're good for. I think watermelon seeds are ones we don't eat. We don't eat too much of the regular squash seed. But I wonder if you could not do some of those the same way you would do a pumpkin.
I wonder why you don't eat pumpkin seeds. So they don't taste good when you fry them up.
We eat pumpkin seeds. We don't eat.
I mean watermelon.
Watermelon seed. Yeah, I think it's just a harder seed.
Are you good at spitting them? Like, can you go the distance?
I used to when I was a kid. I haven't bought a seeded watermelon in a while.
Oh, you don't buy them?
I buy seedless watermelons, and I don't have to worry about spitting.
I wonder if that's the way the grocery stores look, because probably most people want them without the seeds, right?
Right. And nowadays, when we were kids, we wanted, and I think seeded. When I was a kid, to find seedless watermelons, I think you paid a lot more.
But even
as compared to today.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Even the seedless have a few little remnants of seeds.
They have
like ghosts.
Immature. They have the immature seed.
Yeah, like little white things. Yeah.
Right, and that's just an immature seed, and those we end up eating because you eat it by accident.
Yeah, they're soft.
You don't pay attention to it. And you'll find an occasional fully mature seed because you figure the seedless watermelon has to come from somewhere. And they do produce some, though very little, and that the seed many times is not mature when we harvest them. And I think we had back on the 4th of July or something where we were talking about picking out, your ripe watermelon is that you're looking for that creamy yellow spot on the bottom of the watermelon, knowing that it's ripe, but it's not overripe. I always have concern on buying watermelon from roadside stands is because I've read that watermelon, once they're harvested, should not be stored in the heat.
Really?
Room temperature's okay, but you figure if you're sitting out in a pickup truck and the guy's, on the side of the road, he's got some shade for him. He might have a tarp over his truck, but that sometimes those watermelon can go past their prime My understanding is
Do they
fairly
ferment?
quickly. No, but they start to split. They start to lose their texture, that nice crispness. They begin to get mealy, and that's an overripe watermelon. So if you get it, not that when you poke the knife into it and start to cut, that the rind splits. That's always usually go, ooh, that's going to be a good one. But once you've cut it, if the inside has like a split where it's separating from itself, it's probably not quite as nice
Does it taste
as it would have
bad?
been. They'll start to lose their texture, start
Really?
to get instead of the nice crisp, it starts to get a little mealy or a little soft.
Do you ever have a piece of watermelon that was frozen or almost frozen, like the refrigerator was just a little too cold?
Yeah.
That's
Those are
good.
yeah. Hard on your teeth.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
just a soft freeze, not a
Yeah.
hard freeze. Yeah.
Yeah, I like frozen grapes too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
They're hard to eat. They're hard to eat frozen.
Right now, I don't want them because I got a funky
You have a
tooth.
got a tooth issue going on you. It's too bad. But frozen watermelon is pretty good. And I haven't tried it grilled, but I've seen some recipes.
Grilled watermelon?
Grilled watermelon.
92% water. So what's left?
Well, it's just what you're doing is a hot grill would be to just char part of it.
Oh, it's just a tiny bit?
The sugars.
Really? That doesn't sound good.
I don't know. Have you tried grilled pineapple?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, probably.
On ham, right?
Ham is one that's cooked, but it caramelizes some of those sugars.
Yeah.
I haven't tried it. I may one day. Because I have a grill in the house. It would only take me 10 minutes to do it. Just to...
You have a grill in your house?
Yes, on my stovetop.
Really?
Half grill.
Huh.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's cool. Yes, I can grill anything.
So any plans for the summer? Are you going anywhere?
No, not really. Yeah, no. I had my little vacation. I got to put in for a couple more days off. But
Have you ever explored the Florida state parks?
A little bit.
There's
a little
some
bit.
really some
I like
amazing-
Gamble Rogers. I always like Gamble Rogers.
Oh, that's right on the ocean.
Yeah. I've camped there a few times.
Yeah.
And,
Do you camp on the ocean?
On
the
Gamble
beach?
Rogers, it's not on the beach. It's above the dunes. Or behind the dunes, I
Okay.
guess you'd almost say, but they have their crossovers. I'm not sure if they're fully back open. They got hit pretty hard by one of the hurricanes.
I always wish I had
took
met
out
that guy, Gamble Rogers.
Oh, yeah.
He seemed like the kind of guy that I would have got along with.
Right. But they got some nice, I mean, that's a smaller park, but a nice little
He
park.
died rescuing somebody, didn't he? In the
I think
ocean?
so, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I believe he did. But that's, Gamble Rogers, Rainbow, now Silver Springs is state park. Trying to think of some of the other ones I've been to. Homosassa. No, that's not a state park, is it? Homosassa
Yes, it is.
Springs? Okay.
Homosassa is a state park, yeah.
And those are all nice local places to go spend a few hours.
Yes.
But I know you guys have been out peddling your little fannies around the state. It seems like.
Well, not too much. We've gone 5 times so far
Oh, is it?
since
Okay.
kind of getting back into it.
Right.
Yeah, the last time, as I said, was at the university.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like an urban /
Right,
rural. The
right.
good thing about that trail is there are vending machines along the way.
Really?
Yeah. So if you want a cold water or a cold Gatorade,
Well.
and it takes Apple Pay or
nice.
card. Yeah, you don't have to have cash with you.
Cool.
We had water with us, but the water gets,
Yeah. That's you freeze them.
it
that's-
still melts and still gets warm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not warm, but
But-
tepid, whatever.
Well, I don't know. You
But
keep
the
them
vending
warmed up
machine
good, yeah.
is really cold.
Right. Well, that's good. That's good. But no, I always because how much water I drink at work, but I always freeze a couple of them, or partially freeze them.
Oh yeah,
And,
Robin freezes ours too. But they do melt, and then you have melted ice. Do you know? It is amazing though to see the IFAS landscape, all the little greenhouses they have up there. I was amazed how much they have.
Oh, it's quite a Well, like I said, like we've said before, it was they
Is it
are
all-
research facilities. They're
But like when you're a student there, are you growing to learn how to grow, or are you growing to experiment? Or both?
a little bit of both, but I think a lot of it is first you're learning about the biology and the botany and those kind of things, and it depends on what you're doing. Are you looking for the research areas? They have they do their greenhouses with the poinsettia research trials and stuff, the field trials that they do with poinsettias, and then open their sale up. So part of it goes, that these are some varieties you might find out in the retail market, in a couple of years where they're trying them out. Some of them end up in the floral, so that if you're buying floral arrangements for the holidays, some of these plants are that kind of plant, or that's where those will be. Not necessarily in the big box stores, but might be in your supermarket floral departments and things like that. So, they've done research, they've done the field testing. Which ones are hardy? Which ones do this? Because they treat them all exactly the same, kind of thing, and
gives you some information.
Give some information.
So do the seed companies, or even the fertilizer companies, base their instructions on the findings?
Recommendations. Sometimes they do, or whether or not it's, like up in Citra, they have some of the turf grass trial areas where here they're growing different turf grasses to see which ones are going to do better here in Central Florida. And they're done, they're looking for how quickly they recover from disease problems, weed infestations. Which ones block out the weeds the better without having to put down chemicals? Sometimes they are also testing herbicides. How is the reaction to this plant to this same herbicide as this one to this one to this one? Which grass handles this better, and at what rate? So that how low can you go to still get an effectiveness on your weed control? And or how much is too much for this one that this plant can't tolerate it. So it's quite a bit of different things.
Wow.
A lot of learning goes on up there, and then a lot of dissemination of information. But they do come out as some of the instructions and things like that, where you get university tested and things like that. That yes, those companies are paying for that testing, but the university is controlling the testing. And
does the website give the average person the information that they might be looking for, or is it more for somebody like you who's kind of more learned about that stuff?
If you do the one, and that's the one I keep bringing up, is the one, it's called gardeningsolutions.ifas.ufl.edu.
Oh, okay.
And that one you can put in, there's plants, there's lawns, design, care, partnering. I have the one here on watermelon. In this one, I was trying to think of what this, it's just a University of Florida. It's under edibles. And it gives you all kinds of, just a nice little article on pest and disease, planting and care. It's only a little one-page thing. Sometimes they are EDIS, electronic data information, something or another. Where it's actually, or publications that are actually, they were published, they're approved, and all of these are usually approved through the university, that they are research-based information, but written in layman's terms most of the time.
Yeah, it's usually what
depending on how far you want it, how much research you want. You can go further and further in depth and get some of the really technical things, or you can always read the go to the acknowledgments and pick up where those articles or references are from, and go, do further research on your own even.
Yeah, they always have those, everything, the blue link. And,
right. Your hyperlinks and things like that for those. So it's a pretty good
So is this a cruising time? We're not planting, we're not harvesting?
We're not doing a whole lot of right, we're not, we're sort of settling in, we're not fertilizing, cruising. We're mowing,
mowing for sure.
Mowing for sure. Kind of just relaxing through the summer, having some iced tea, maintaining what we've got.
Having some iced tea.
I
like that part of it. Yeah.
But we're thinking forward to the fall and winter crops. So, probably in the next couple of weeks, you'll be starting those little things on your windowsill, and we'll be talking about some of those.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We'll be looking at that fall crop. Actually, I'm thinking about trying watermelon in one of my beds there.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, how many?
Pull my green beans out and put.
But don't they need a lot of area? Don't they need a lot?
Well, but the bed I have is 13 square feet.
So it's enough?
I can keep them in there. Yeah, I can keep them in there. I just mow the ground up around them before I plant, and that way, if they get away, it doesn't matter. They can run however far they need.
Thank you for doing this, Carolyn.
My pleasure.
I always love this segment. It's one of my favorite segments of the week, and obviously it's just a nice gift from you to be able to do this for us. How many years have you been doing this? I was thinking about this.
I think we.
It's got to be 15 or so.
I think we've been about 15 years now.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah. It has been.
Wow.
It has, because I think I was doing something and I brought up the YouTube, and it was like, oh my God, that was a long time ago.
You're right. I know. And some people still comment on them. Isn't it amazing? Some of the old stuff still gets comments. All right. Well, thank you for doing this. If anybody has any questions, you can call the IFAS extension.
That's right, 671-8400.
And or you can send Carol Ann a note. We didn't mention the Facebook page, but Carol Ann has a Facebook group called In the Garden. Easy enough to find on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Carol Ann.
Thank you, Larry.
We will be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News, I'm Lillian Wu. The House about to debate a resolution condemning the president for what some are calling racist tweets. President Trump doubling down this morning on his criticism of the freshman congresswoman he's been attacking, saying it's the women who should apologize.
He was back on Twitter saying, quote, why isn't the House voting to rebuke the filthy and hate-laced things that they have said?
Fox's Kristen Fisher. The president tweeting Sunday that the 4, who are women of color, should go back to their countries. 3 of them were born here and all are U.S. citizens. Vice President Mike Pence helping mark 50 years since the historic Apollo 11 moon mission, recalling
sitting in the basement of our home as those snowy